Got it. Okay, here we are. Thursdays at 11 a.m. is QT Conversations, the highlight of my week. Why? Because I get to noodle around the best subjects in tutoring with some of my favorite people. In the room today, we've got some experienced QT Conversations people and some new people to the room. So, for context, what I will explain to you is there is a theme, but there is not an agenda. We're not looking for right answers. We're looking to have an open-ended discussion that hopefully pushes thinking forward, not just for us, but actually, and not to overstate it, for the tutoring profession. Because what happens in these conversations is we actually develop thinking, and it's making a palpable difference to the world of tutoring. I will have to share with you that my book has just come out, Love Tutoring, Be the Tutor Your Student Needs. It's practical, it's inspiring, it's full of examples of tutors who are doing it well, and full of really key takeaways, journal moments, and all of that good stuff. People seem to like it. So if you haven't yet got your copy, please go to Amazon and look up Love Tutoring. And once you've read it and liked it, please do me a review so other people know as well. Right. That's all of that. Our theme for today. Now, let me give you a little bit more context. So, what I've done is I've created a rotation of themes for us to do on a monthly basis. And the first one is focused on pedagogy. And the second one is focused on the business of tutoring. And then the third one will be focused on celebrations of what's working well in tutoring. And finally, the QT Book Club, where I take one of the books that has inspired and informed my thinking and share it with you. So today we're on week 2 of the rotation, which is a focus on the business of tutoring. And I chose a topic that I think is spoken about a lot, but not necessarily pushed forward often. And that is the idea of social media and whether it is an necessary evil or a valuable resource. And I think that the word or is incorrect there. I think it's both a necessary evil and a valuable resource. And I'll tell you why. There is a 9-year-old that is very close to me who came back from her first day of school in tears. And when a few hours later in bed, she was able to talk about her feelings, she said to me, "Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough." She's 9. And I know that the journey of becoming self-aware as a tween and a teen includes those moments of, I'm like this, you're like that, we're different. What does that mean? But I strongly feel that social media fans that fire. And I think we all have our own stories, our own experiences, and there's a growing body of statistics that says that there is a strong correlation between the mental health pandemic that we find ourselves in and this generation that is native to social media. That 9-year-old that I mentioned, she is known to scroll on YouTube and watch just silly, innocent things with very photoshopped people. So it doesn't really matter that she's only watching a Harry Potter thing or a, dogs being funny. The people on the screen look perfect, and that becomes really confusing. So, what does it mean for us in our tutoring context? I've been making a lot of noise on social media this week because I have a book to let people know about. And I have mixed feelings about doing that. Because on the one hand, not only I don't want to come across as somebody who is always speaking about myself or my achievement or a thing that I want you to know about, but also because I don't want to be that person. And I am always wary of being really authentic. And so, whatever it is that I'm doing that's coming across on social media is also affecting me as a human. And I think it's important to be honest about that. Now, the majority of us are using social media to promote our tutoring, to inform parents and students about our expertise, our unique approach, and how to get in touch with us. And that's exactly, I'm going to say as it should be, but really what I mean is it's as we are advised to do. So, all the people who keep the social media treadmill moving are telling us that we have to continue to make noise and continue to be in front of people. And I think it's useful to understand the pros and cons of that, what it does to us as humans, and if we are going to handle these tools, then to handle them wisely. So that's my sort of opening for you. I really hope that this conversation feels really honest, and I also hope that it is not only a sort of emotion-led conversation, but actually an intellect and a profession guiding conversation. Jenna, can I call on you first? Because I know that you are cautious about your use of social media.
Hi, it's me. Sorry, I was slightly distracted then. What was the question?
There you go. We haven't mentioned distraction yet. How many of us watch TV and play on our phones at the same time? Yeah. So the question was, what are your thoughts about use of social media as a necessary evil or a valuable tool, or both?
Yeah, I agree that it's both. It's not one or the other. I'm very autistic in my communication sometimes, and I really struggle with social media in general. Growing up, I was never someone who was on the social media groups with my friends or anything like that. And my tutoring, in terms of like career industry side of things, I never needed it. It wasn't until I moved away from where I had spent 20 plus years growing up and developing my practice and my connections and everything, and my services, that I struggled. I didn't have so many word of mouth referrals anymore. I was in an area where the demographic was so different and so hard to feel part of. And then COVID hit just as I was starting to feel secure in it, and everything changed. And one of the things that I struggle with is I am very security aware, the kinds of clients that I work with, on kind of the vulnerable side, as well as like the nature of their careers and things like that, their backgrounds. It kind of and just my personal security as well. I've had so many incidents over the years of something getting out that was problematic and put me in danger or made me feel unsafe or anything. And I never want to feel like that again. And so I find I'm in this conundrum where I love talking to people. I love having these conversations, and finding my voice and the way I talk about what I do has been instrumental in terms of I found it by talking to people, and I want other people to see those conversations. I want other people to be part of those conversations, and I want to engage in social media. It's time and it's effort, and it's knowing how to have that balance of being safe but being authentic and connecting with people and it not being too much. And I have my own qualms with social media directly. I'm not on it a lot. And I don't watch TV or anything, which doesn't help in terms of knowing what's going on in the world. And so there's like this disconnect. Um, and but I do enjoy it. So bit of a conundrum for me that I haven't quite solved.
Stunning, stunning, stunning. Thank you. You did exactly what I needed to do. You brought up lots of different themes. I'm just going to point to some of them, and then Tina, if it's all right with you, I'm going to call on you next. Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that you mentioned, Jenna, was need. Do I need to be on social media? And Dee, we've spoken earlier about this year about the fact that since your schedule is full, you don't need to be as proactive on social media this year, which is an interesting thing because then we're really intentional or really aware of the purpose of social media, which is to fill our tutoring schedule. Um, one of the purposes, because then another thing that you mentioned was about connection and community, networking opportunities, but more than that, actually not feeling alone and actually having a chance to articulate your unique tutoring approach. And all of those things feel really purposeful and they feel really of greater value than simply marketing. And I think that that's useful as well. Yes, of course, COVID changed everything for everyone. And I think that knowing that and knowing that that's the case for the younger generation is important. I'm curious to know whether anyone in the room is using social media with students, whether it's TikTok or YouTube as a writing prompt, or yes, so you're nodding along. So and the pros and cons of that in terms of being relevant, but then being wise and modeling use of screen time intentionally. And of course, there's an equivalent with AI that we won't explore here. I really, really appreciate that you brought up safeguarding and data protection, both for ourselves and for our young people. And being mindful of what's appropriate there is something that I know you're constantly seeking questions and answers on. And then finally, that idea of enjoying it, but I enjoy it. And what that enjoyment looks like and feels like, and what it feeds in us. No answers, just questions. Jenna Holt.
One tiny thing to add is user generated content and how that feeds into it, because I have some things to throw out to you guys later if we have time.
Of course, we'll circle back. Tina.
Yeah, so this is actually the first time I've met other tutors. So when you
Well,
I know.
You may have landed in the nicest bunch, to be quite honest.
I know, I just so I've been tutoring part-time for 9 years, but full-time since 2020. So it's kind of ridiculous that it's taken 4 years. But I've never had like I've seen stuff from this pop up, but I've never had availability at this time apart from this academic year. So I thought I'd join today. But in terms of social media, so when I first started out, I used Facebook quite a lot. Created like a Facebook business page, and I still get some inquiries through there, but I don't necessarily rely on it because now it's kind of formed into word of mouth and things like that. But I'm still getting inquiries and I still do pick up people from there, but that's pretty much all I use it for. So I don't actually promote myself or do anything active. I kind of just have it as a messenger, contact me kind of thing. And then I started a YouTube channel about 6 months ago, and that's kind of starting to take up more time, trying to release a video every week. But luckily I haven't seen any of the negatives of social media actually. But maybe that's because I don't use it enough. I think it's I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think Facebook has been useful for having reviews and things like that. But I'm also, I don't know if Google counts as social media. I doubt it, but yeah, it's interesting to hear other people's thoughts on it, because as I said, I've never heard any other tutors speak about anything, so this is cool.
Well, fantastic. And I thank you, and thank you for joining us. I hope that your 11 o'clock stay free, because we're here Monday to Thursday. Dee's nodding along. On the one hand, it is transformational to get to know other tutors. On the other hand, it is a little bit of a I think I want to say a Pandora's box. Like, there's a lot in there, and you do have to be. She's nodding. I'm going to call on you next, Dee, because it's very easy to start thinking that you have to do things the way that other people do them. And then it's easy to start getting sucked into marketing people who want to sell to you, who tell you that you need to be on social media every day. And we should know better than that because we're grown-ups, but many of us get sucked right into that behavior. Go ahead, Dee.
Like you, Tina, I was doing tiny little bits of tutoring while I was working full-time, took redundancy, and tutoring then had to provide an income. And it was a year before I discovered Qualified Tutor. Complete game changer, because I realized that I wasn't on my own. And as Julia famously quotes back at a number of people, I didn't know I needed supporting until I was being supported. But yes, Julia's absolutely right. It's the feelings of I should be doing this because they're doing it was overwhelming at times. But the QT community also helped me with the conscious decisions that no, I'm not going to do those things. We talked about groups versus one-to-one tutoring in the session. Yesterday. Yes,
All a
yesterday.
blur.
Yeah, it is all a bit of a blur. Yeah, too many balloons at the book party. And I'd I'd done in-person groups when I first started tutoring. Didn't like it because it was home ed. It was too big a range of attainment in the room. I've tried small online groups, and it just doesn't work. It just and my gut clenches when I think about it, and I listen to my gut. So you're absolutely in an amazing place. And I'm hoping that it will transform your experience of tutoring the way it has so many other people. So welcome. It's lovely to have you here, especially as you do math. And I'm
Yeah.
totally amazed that you can do primary up to A level. I'm just blown out of the water. In fact, I might want to have a private conversation with you
Yeah.
about primary maths, because
Sure.
I'm missing so many important things in that area to be able to support my secondary students. But welcome, lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Yeah, no worries.
That was delicious, Dee. And just to pull on that thread of hearing yourself think, listening to your gut. Yeah. So one of the downsides of social media, to pull us back to that theme, is that it's noisy and it makes it difficult to listen to your own instincts. And that's part of what the choice making is. Dr. M, you've renamed yourself. So I'm going Dr. M now.
Sorry, yeah, I thought, oh, I better put my
Very proper.
new tutoring name on there. I think for me, I'm just trying to think what I really feel about it. And I think that, like the internet, social media itself is morally neutral. It's how people use it that makes it a problem or useful. Because it can be used for great things. And I say this as a Scottish person living in England. I know I have more contact with my Scottish family, including my extended Scottish family, my cousins, than I even would if I was still living there, through my personal profile on Facebook, for one place. In my own use of it, one, I have a social media team that posts for me on my Facebook page 5 times a week. They create the posts and they post them. And they are such a godsend. And, I get to check the post and say, oh, I don't like that bit. Can you take that bit out? Like, for example, I don't let them post any quotes by Richard Dawkins because I can't stand the man. So anytime they've done that, I said, don't quote him again, please. And mostly I really like what they do, and I feed them stuff. Like at the moment, I'm using unashamedly my cats and my daughter's little dog to make points about learning and education. So I'm recording these little videos, and so I say, here's a video, here's what I was thinking. They use it and write a post about it, which then I can pepper everywhere else, which saves me such a lot of time. But also I tend to think of it as like, in our relationships in real life, we don't tell everybody everything. We may have a few close people that we tell our secrets to and we confide in and we ask for help with our problems. We don't do that with everybody we meet. So we don't want to be doing that on social media. And also to get a sense of the different genres. Like Facebook is completely different to LinkedIn. I prefer LinkedIn, to be honest, in terms of interacting with people. TikTok, I thought I couldn't stand TikTok. I actually love TikTok. So personally, I'm looking at people's videos and liking and commenting. On my own feed, very few videos of me, but mostly if I do a screencast of solving a chemistry problem, put it to a jazzy bit of music and put it up there. So like helping students for the exam. So I'm not talking to students on social media. For me, that's a no-no. But I'm sharing stuff with them. In my own Facebook group, I share online tutorials that I make. So those are like freebies. just to put stuff out there. I think I've got a foot in every camp. I tend not to use X because I don't like the flavor of it. And it's there. It's there. So I'm really clear on why am I doing this? This is I'm personally interacting, so I'll set the privacy settings to these are friends and family only, on Facebook, for example. Or this is about my tutoring, so that's appropriate for that. I also have not related to tutoring, but a spirituality blog. So I have another page, so I'm really clear, and this is about spirituality. So I'm conscious of what genre, why I'm using it, and I'm not telling everybody my secrets on there, not at all.
Yeah, I can hear so much thinking there, and so much activity. What I'm not clear about is what are the outcomes? So why do you have a team doing social media for you? And how do you know whether that's a good spend?
I know I work with a business coach. I work with a business coach, and so that the social media team's included in that, and also because I'm using their posts. So I'm not writing posts for my tutoring business. Maybe the odd one here or there when I feel moved to, but they create a lot of posts which I can then put anywhere else. So I could honestly use Canva when I'm doing it. I could spend 2 hours on Canva and schedule posts for a month. And then I don't have to worry about posting anything because I know
Fantastic. But all of
everybody's
these,
prepared.
as you know, as a scientist and as a spiritual person, all of that is the how and the what. I'd love to know the
Yes.
why.
Because I'll tell you why, because parents that I've talked to that have come to me for tuition, I'll say, oh, we were looking on YouTube and I haven't got loads of videos on there, but we were looking on YouTube and we found some of your videos and we liked your approach. Another person's come, we looked at your resources on TES. So one of them was a teacher, and so she looked on TES at my resources and said, these are really creative. We really like how they look. So it's about having having a presence, I suppose, an
Sorry, hold on. Let me
infrastructure.
just clarify. So TES is the Times Educational Supplement magazine's website, and
Yeah.
they allow tutors and teachers to upload resources. Where's the cost that people who download it pay for them?
That I have a range of both. So I started using it while I was still teaching in school. And then when they said that you could sell them, I have some that I sell. So I have a shop there for my
Yeah.
teaching resources. And again, I know a parent came to me through there. Others are
Lovely.
contacting me through Facebook. Others are contacting me through LinkedIn. Surprisingly, I've had a lot of people contact me through LinkedIn and also other agencies. I got some work writing for Cambridge University Press on the Cambridge International GCSE, a book that's coming out, exam prep, and they contacted me through LinkedIn. So it's about, and this is what I've learned from my coach, is this like, if you're there and people are looking for something, you'll come up. That's all.
That's right.
And I found it comes from a range of places, not just one particular place.
So it's about opportunities, and it's
Yeah.
about putting yourself out there and waiting to see what comes back. And putting the messages out there that are going to attract the opportunities that you're hoping for, not just tutoring, but also writing opportunities, leadership opportunities, thought leadership. So that's fantastic. And it really, I think there's also something else that you have described but not said, and that is that it makes the whole thing more interesting.
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? That there's something about putting yourself out there and articulating what you do, as Jenna said before, that makes the whole thing it feels like it goes further.
Yeah, and also I think the one thing, social, the team are always telling me you need to be social on social media. And I'm like, I'm an introvert. But
We're all introverts around here.
the thing is that I mean, you talk about being supported and Love Tutoring Festival in QT, and it is that. It is that sense. I'm not alone doing this, just
Yeah.
me, myself in my house all by myself. And that because I now have this health condition, I don't go out socializing very much. I maybe leave the house twice a week. But that doesn't mean to say I'm not socializing, because I
Nice.
talk to people, not
Nice.
just my students. I talk to people online.
That's right.
And one of the things is like that, is like making those connections as well. So I'm still not sitting alone at home,
Yeah.
isolated doing my work. There's still that social aspect to it that I don't get anymore because I'm not going into school. And I think
It's
that's
the digital
also
staff
important.
room, isn't it? It's the
Yeah.
digital staff room. It gives us an opportunity to talk to adults about the subjects that we're interested in. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that's interesting about the internet, and specifically social media, is how it lends itself to niche and specialism, doesn't it? So then we're talking to like-minded people rather than the people who live close by us or work in the same building as us, and that really allows us to focus directly in. There's probably, I mean, there's a lot of conversation about the limits of that also, where we're really just getting reinforcing messages rather than broadening messages. So that's important also. James, we've not heard from you yet. I'd love to hear about your current use of social media. And please, will you just mention, as Margaret Mary did, about the different platforms and which ones you prefer, which ones are better suited to you?
I have a quite strong opinion on it, to be
Oh,
fair.
good.
I tend to use a little bit of LinkedIn, which I need to be more active on. It's hard for me to be social on social media. So I need to be more active sometimes, I feel, but that's quite difficult. I use Facebook, Instagram. I don't use TikTok. That's the one I don't use. And there's something about it that doesn't quite sit right with me, so I don't use TikTok. Yeah, so that's my use of social media. What was the other part of the question? Sorry, Julian.
So, what are your thoughts in terms of what was the phrase I used? Necessary evil
Necessary evil.
versus what's the phrase I used? Rich opportunity, like a
yeah, to help. I think social media can be a really great engaging way, a way to engage with more people. And more people have more opportunities because of it. But I also think and this is where education comes in, a real side to it, sort of a darker side to it, where there's misinformation that's being spread constantly.
Very nice.
And I've got people in my family, and I won't discuss what they're sort of spreading on there, but it's just a picture with some words, and they haven't actually looked and thought, is this correct? Is this not? They haven't verified it, and it's sort of spreading lots of misinformation in that sense. And I think one of the other issues is it's it's a dopamine, and I've sort of reading about this, and and I feel it myself, you can scroll for a long time and very quickly get absorbed. So it sort of plays, I think it's, people use it in a way to play on that as well, to keep you drawn in.
Mm-hmm.
Which might not necessarily be a bad thing in a certain sense, but then it can really distract you as well.
Distraction, very good. Dopamine, distraction, and misinformation are the themes that I'm hearing here. Was there anything else you wanted to? I'm gonna pivot the conversation in a second. Was there anything else you wanted to throw in?
No, that's it really. For
Fantastic.
myself, I tend to generally use Instagram and Facebook, really.
Fantastic. So this is what I want to think about now. So I've been doing some work with Sue Atkins, who's the parenting advisor for ITV and Disney and all sorts of impressive places. And she's really, really focused on use of screen with children, and reducing screen time, and when you give a child an iPhone, and all of those questions. For context, I raised my children with no screen whatsoever. So for the first 10 years, we had no TV. We had no watching DVDs or YouTube or anything else. Of course, this is before streaming, but we were deeply immersed in audiobooks, and lots and lots and lots of play. And it was gorgeous. And then my eldest turned into a teenager, kicked the door of digital open, and in came everything. And of course, as Jenna said, COVID changed it all as well. And now there's a heck of a lot of screen in my house. And as somebody who grew up watching TV 100 hours a day, I have it is one of my weaknesses, TV. So why am I oversharing that for you? So there's something about modeling. This is what I wanted to ask you about next. And I find it really interesting that Tina is quite distant from social media. And when you described that, the word that popped into my mind was wholesome. That's a good place to be. Yeah. Social media feels like a thing you should be doing. Like James said, I should be more social on social media. But I wonder whether it's a real should. And I wonder what the why is. And we've said that the two important things are finding clients and staying connected to other good people. And we know that the problems of social media are that they're distracting, that it's a dopamine rush that's not necessarily helpful, and that key point about misinformation. So how do you help children to navigate social media in a way that is good for their mental health, that helps them to be critically minded when it comes to evaluating information, helps them to understand the tech as a tool, and not as a distraction or an escape or anything else. And there's one metaphor that I'd love to share with you. When my kids were little, and I used to describe to them the dangers of the internet, I used to say that the internet is like an ocean. It's full of beautiful things, but it's also full of dangerous things. And you won't see the shark coming until it's there. And so what you need to learn to do is navigate and keep yourself safe, because it is a rich and vibrant and interesting and absorbing place that does have its dangers. Jenna, can I call on you first? Margaret Mary, I'm coming to you next.
What specifically?
Your
That was
thoughts,
lots of statements there.
Your thoughts.
I think it's fascinating because there's the thing that I think resonates most is this feeling of should, and it's something that I struggle with in every facet of my life. Is this idea of what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, what's right to do and what's wrong to do. And one of the challenges I find in general is this idea that everything has to be measured and valued and costed in numerical ways that determine their value. And one of the things I quite enjoy is the creative side of sharing what I'm doing, making something, messing around on Canva or something, and coming out with something and putting it out there. And I think that there can't be a should, otherwise it's not organic and it's not authentic. And that's something that I really struggle with. I feel like this is authentic and it's our voices and it's who we are. And I think that for me is the little like that back and forth that I always have.
Yeah, that's really, really gorgeous. And how should kills creativity is interesting. And it's certainly the way we're raised in schools, with compliance and that sort of eagerness to please, that means that we're always worried about what we're supposed to be doing and what people are expecting of us. I think Elizabeth's point about parental control is important. And I will tell you that I'm a parent and I'm not great at control. I'm not great at control in anything. I'm good at guidance. I'm not great at control. I don't even try to be. but there's something about media specifically that find it really intimidating to be the person in control. My husband's very good at it. He'll just turn screens off and shout at people, and then they'll go off and play, and it's very nice. I'll sit down and watch with them, which is great. My 12-year-old and I went to see Beetlejuice last night, and it was fantastic. So on the one hand, it creates shared moments, and on the other hand, go on, my darling, go.
I'm intrigued by the use of the word control.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people talk about it, especially parents, and especially in like school settings and things like that, is I need to control what my children have access to. I need to control this and that and the other. And I think it's all part of it. And for me, I'm someone who comes from a bit more of a STEM background, even though that's way blended now. And I like, as I know you guys know, I like my scientific studies. I like reading them and seeing what data there is on these things. And it's really, really interesting to see how, even from a legislative perspective, people tout control as the way to make people have a healthy relationship with social media, when every bit of research says the opposite is true. It's about that guidance, it's about that collaboration, it's about having these conversations, and that being a normal part of life growing up, to be deliberate, to be thoughtful, to be mindful, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So Elizabeth just said there that she watches her daughter watching TikTok, or watches what she's watching on TikTok. And you reminded me that I once sat in a doctor's surgery and I saw a mother and a young child, not a toddler, maybe under 5, and they were playing Minecraft together. And I was just absorbed by listening to their conversation. And I said to her, James, I am coming to you soon. I just did tell Margaret Mary I was coming down first. So then I'm coming to you after that. So, but I really wanted to share with you the fact that this was a shared conversation between a parent and a child that was creative and collaborative, and they were exploring the Minecraft world together, and it was an absolute joy. And I said to her afterwards, I said, it is not often you see that I'm like that kind of person that does that, not often that you see that kind of thing. And she said, how else am I going to help her?
Modeling.
Julie, welcome. We'd love to hear from you and see you whenever you're ready. I know that you're having camera trouble. We're talking about social media, its pros and cons, its uses, and we're trying to push the conversation beyond the things that we usually say. Margaret Mary, go ahead.
Okay, I agree with a lot of what Jenna said, and I'm going to draw my experience in spiritual direction at the moment. Whenever I hear that word should, and there are 2 questions that come automatically. Where is that coming from, and where is it leading?
Nice.
And as a self-employed tutor, I do notice that pressure, I should be on social media, and it's like, actually, where is that coming from, and where is it leading to? If it's leading to me feeling stressed or overworking, or all of those things that I'm trying to stay healthy, I don't do it. Even dare I say it, qualified tutor, this idea that I should be going to those meetings, they're in my calendar, I should be going. It's like, hang on.
Yeah.
You're tired.
Yeah.
You don't need to go and socialize because you've got students today. So it's, for me, it is to notice what is going on in me. And that word should is a red flag for me. If I hear it, if I hear myself saying it, I go, whoa, hold on, what's happening here? What's this making me feel? And I like the idea of modeling. I mean, with my kids, they're grown up now, but when they were little, we were watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer together, and they were less than 12.
The new one or the original?
The original in the 90s, in the early 90s. So they were like slightly below the recommended age.
Yeah.
But they didn't watch it alone, they watched it with me.
Yeah.
And again, the other thing, as in spiritual direction, and what Jenna said, it's the conversation that's important. So when there were questions, and I watched the episode first. They weren't coming into
so you watched it twice, like Neighbours.
I watched it lots of times. Yeah, I watched them lots of times. But but I watched it before I watched it with them. So there were a couple of episodes that I thought, this is too much for them. So I can even remember what they're called and what they're about. I just, So I was able to say to them, we're not going to watch this next episode because I think this will upset you or frighten you or whatever.
Very nice.
And we had conversations about it, and we had conversations about what the monsters represented. So rather than a literal, we talked about, different people in the world. And through all of that, I raised these two very tolerant children that were very aware that not everybody was well intentioned, and some people even who might present as difficult had hurt going on. So I got these two very tolerant young adults or adults now who are compassionate and non-judgmental, through these conversations. So for me, it's the process that is important.
Nice.
Sometimes we go like, be careful with what it is, because as you said, Julia, there are a lot of dangers out there. So we're aware of them and go, actually, I don't want you to watch this yet because this is too dangerous for you at this point. Yeah, and my two fully respected that, and they watched those episodes later as adults. Fantastic. And go, yeah, okay, we see why you didn't let us watch those.
Isn't it funny that they went back to them though, that it was an itch they needed to scratch?
I think my oldest will say, we were raised on Buffy.
It sounds like it.
Yeah, but life lessons from Buffy, seriously, they remember them. It's a bit embarrassing. I'll tell you a funny story though. At one point, my youngest in an RE lesson, they were when the Willow and Tara story was going off. My youngest in an RE lesson said, they were talking about families and family structures. So she put up a question, and bear in mind, this is a church school, a Catholic school. And she said, but they could be gay and have two mummies or two daddies, couldn't they? And it was just like, when they were told me this at parents' evening, I was going, yes.
So I'll tell you, so my kids were also raised in a faith school. And I do think that there's something about giving them at least enough information to know what to be afraid of.
Yeah.
So I read a novel recently where the boy was nearly kidnapped by predators, and we saw him through the narrative being groomed. And it was very, very shocking to see, because you were in the boy's perspective. So you only got an inkling slowly about what was really going on there. And I described it to my 12-year-old. And it really took him by surprise. And taking the time to explain to him what that danger was, and the fact that those predators will have had lots of children that they were reaching out to on social media or in interactive gaming, waiting for one of them to pick up the bait, became a really important conversation. We haven't even scratched the surface on the conversation around safeguarding in social media yet, but I think it's really, really important. James, go ahead.
So for me, it was the word should, and and I think Dr. Margaret and Jenna made some really good points, and the point that Dr. Margaret made was the outcome of that. And I thought that was something that really stuck, because sometimes you're in a situation yourself and what you're doing something and you should be doing something else. You should be thinking, you know, because if you don't do that, you're not going to feel as good. If you sacrifice something in the short term, you can get a long-term benefit. But I think you've got to think, is that should the right thing? And in a social media context, I think if you're creating, I think that's the way you want to be using it, not just the consumer. You want to be more of a creator.
That's really interesting. My teenagers would never dream of putting anything on Instagram. All day long, they're scrolling on Instagram, but they wouldn't dream of being the creator. That's really
Yeah. So I think creating is, I think for me, for me personally, I deal best with it if I say, okay, I'm going to use social media for this amount of time, and then completely switch off from it and actually be more present with like my partner and things like that instead of sort of scrolling on it. That's the way
Yeah.
I like to use it, but like, it's really hard because it can get addictive as well. So
that thing about being present is so powerful, and I'm really happy that word joined us in the conversation. As you know, we brought a puppy into our home about 18 months ago, and she's the best thing that happened to us because she forces us to be present. And I think there was certainly a massive boom in puppy adoption during COVID, wasn't there? And it makes a lot of sense that those opportunities to build relationship and be present are the antidote to social media. And sort of getting the balance right between those two things. It's really informative that the word should keeps coming back here. In my book, I use the phrase, it's one of, Dee, you won't have got to it yet. Have you been allowed to open the envelope yet, Dee? Are you waiting to open it so that you can do the video? I'm sorry. I use the phrase in there that
So I'm going to create a social media post out of it.
Oh, there you go. I use a phrase in there that tutors are natural rebels. We're anti-authoritarian because we're nerds and we like to challenge the status quo. And I think that's really informative that people in this room do not like the word should or find it a red flag. And it causes us to be more critical in our thinking. Tina, what are your thoughts?
As I was listening to everyone, I was just thinking how recently I got engaged a couple months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I didn't post on Instagram or Facebook or anything, even though all my friends said I should.
Good.
And I was like, I just messaged my closest friends about it. And then they were like, oh, when's the post? Can't wait, blah, blah. And I was like, what post? I'm not going to, even though I do use Instagram for my personal, I use it as like a personal photo album kind of thing, like, you know, when I go on holiday and things like that, I like looking back at it. But I have loads of people on there that I haven't spoken to for like maybe 10 years, so I didn't want to share it on there. And then yesterday my mum made a Facebook post on a recent holiday that we went, and she said it was great to spend time with my daughter and her fiance. So my mum actually shared it with everyone on her Facebook, even though I hadn't yet. So that was a bit interesting in terms of social media.
Was there a response?
Yeah, well, luckily it's mostly all her friends
Okay.
on her Facebook anyway. So everyone was kind of just saying congratulations and things
And
like
I
that.
have to ask, what about your partner? Did your partner put a post up?
So no, he doesn't use Facebook anymore, and he uses Instagram just rarely. He actually edits my YouTube videos, and he does a lot of YouTube, like he looks a lot at YouTube, but that's as far as it goes, I think, with him. Both of us are kind of a little bit cut off, I would say, from what's going on.
Isn't that funny? Because you used that phrase cut off, and Jenna used it right at the beginning of the conversation. I'm very cut off as well. I don't do the news at all because I feel like the press is really not out for my good. And there's very few things that they'll report that I can do anything helpful about. No, it's not good for me. But it means that we are intentionally not playing the game.
Yeah. I don't know. I find the news when I find myself quite time poor anyway, but then when I do watch the news, if it's on or whatever, I do end up getting really frustrated. So that's why I just don't interact with it. And then if someone brings up something that's happened that recently, then I can ask them about it. But I don't know. I just don't like it.
Yes, neither do I. I do rely on my husband to tell me the things I need to know. The year that David Bowie and Prince and George Michael died, he remembered to tell me all of those things. But it's a little bit embarrassing being out of the loop as well. And again, that feeds back to the should, right? Where you're embarrassed, it means that there's a should that you feel like you're breaking the rule of Dee. I've saved you for our final comments. I'd love to hear, actually, if you don't mind, quite specifically, was this conversation helpful? And why?
Yes.
Why?
I loved Margaret Mary, and I have to say, my middle sister, her middle names are Margaret Mary, so this is speaking to my heart. But this idea of that of actually flagging should as a red flag, and those two statements, where is it coming from, where is it leading, really helpful, really helpful. And then Jenna posted something in the chat about reflective practice, it being deliberate, intentional, and active. And I know all those things, but am I intentionally, deliberately, actively reflecting on the fact that that's what reflective practice should be? So that's why the conversation's been helpful for me. But seeing perspectives on social media, and I am digitally unhealthy with my usage, especially late in the day. So it's another kind of nudge for me. Do I actually need to, for my own mental health, actually go away and do something about that? So it's another nudge.
Do you
I've been
remember
getting
that program? Do you remember the kids program? Why don't you?
Oh,
Yeah, no, 100 years before you were born. So the program
why don't you just go? Why don't
switch
you
off
stop
your TV set
and
and do
go and
something
do
less
something
boring
more instead? Yes.
It was a TV program. The credits at the beginning. So I didn't know what they wanted me to do. Do they want me to watch? They want me to not watch? They want me to turn off afterwards? You know. So I changed the channel. Go on, Dee.
It's always super wonderful being in this space.
Yeah.
And to know that others are dealing with the same questions, dealing with the same struggles is always reassuring.
Yes.
And it's reinforcing messages that I'm getting elsewhere that I'm trying to ignore, but actually perhaps I'm getting the messages from lots of different places because it's a message I actually need to pay attention to.
Interesting. Okay. So I think for me, similarly, it's Margaret Mary, you're a healthy human, aren't you? For me, creating conversations where we are all pointing in healthy directions together is important. And the sway of social media and the sway of people who are selling social media to us is so pervasive that we need to kick quite hard to keep ourselves moving in a healthy direction for the sake of ourselves and for the sake of our young people. I don't think we scratch the surface on teaching children to use tech safely. I think it will be interesting to think as tutors how we're using tech. If you're speaking to students on tech, it means you're sending them to tech. Is that something that you feel good about? Margaret Mary used the phrase at the beginning that social media is morally neutral. And I think that that's only as true as the people involved. And so being those people and joining those conversations is exactly the point. So to wrap up, I want to explain to you the way Qualified Tutor events work this year so that you know what to expect from us and so that we are not creating stress and FOMO for you. Number one is you should not be here if you have something better to do. If you need to rest, if you need to tutor, if you need to take the dog for a walk, do those things and message me because that's the right thing. If you want to be here, it's because you want to talk about teaching and learning, you want to talk about the business of tutoring, or you want to find out about resources from our partners. We are not intending to create FOMO and we are not intending to create what's it called, decision fatigue. But on Mondays at 11 o'clock fortnightly, we are talking about being the tutor your student needs, which is pedagogy, the teaching and learning, research informed best practice to help you to make the most out of every tutoring session. Tuesdays, Odette is running group coaching alternately for business leaders and for independent tutors to help you think about your business practices, to be really, really reflective and to take charge of your progress. It's sort of coaching. It's sort of like having your very own coach in your pocket. And Odette is one of the absolute best coaches I've ever known. Wednesdays is when we meet our partners. So anyone, we've got a series coming from Lawhound, a series coming from, I don't think we've announced who it is yet, but it's a social media expert, and one on Full Scope Freelancer, which is the tech resource, which James, I hear that you've just started with now. So those are really in-depth series where you'll get support from experts who support tutors. That's the dog. And finally, on Thursdays, is these conversations. There's a whole great big curriculum of conversations that we'll be having together. And I hope that between us, we will leave each other feeling safe, skilled, and supported. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you next week. Tina, will you be coming again? Yes. See you later. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Jenna. Thank you, Dr. M. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, James. Bye.